as many of you know, as a cord-cutting fan and having cord-cutting New England and all of the other things that we're doing, it was natural that I was going to find friends in this space and develop relationships, talking about what we know, sharing tips. And it is sad for me that I had to go all the way up to Canada, almost as far as where Santa Claus lives in the North Pole, to find my friend here. That,
not that far north, but what better place to come to, my friend?
well, we're in Ottawa, so Toronto.
Yes.
Then east of Toronto is Ottawa, right there, and that's where George is. And George is a media blogger, expert on streaming, more appropriately, expert on Canadian streaming. Which is that just streaming with a lot more Molson beer?
What, beer in one hand, remote on the other? What the heck? You got it made, right?
Yep, exactly. So tell me what makes some Canadian streaming a little bit different, just briefly for the people who are watching.
Well, I personally think it's the choices or lack thereof. When you look at what the U.S. has with Hulu and YouTube TV and Fubo TV and Sling TV, we just don't have those kind of choices here in Canada, at least not yet anyway. It's still a very big cable-centric, satellite TV-centric lifestyle, I guess, for lack of a better term. So, but not all of us could afford cable, and that was basically my experience about the last 4 or 5 years. Is what can I do? What services can I find that I could get the TV watching that I want, without having to pay the big bills? And the lack of choices was really made it difficult to kind of make that happen. So perseverance, research, trial and error, finding the right devices to play all that stuff. There's just a very little information compared to what you get in the United States. And even, if you find, oh, I want this channel or I want this content, it's not necessarily available across the border. So the biggest challenge really is to find, now the key though is your mindset. If you really want to have your ESPNs or TSN, the Sports Network equivalent of here in Canada, you won't find it as a standalone streamer like ESPN maybe. So it has to be like, what are you willing to sacrifice? But you also have to be willing to adapt, because you're not going to find all the stuff you want. So you have to adapt to what the stuff you like, right? And that, I think, the key. Once you figure that out, then the cord, cutting the cable cord, as they say, is going to make things a lot easier in the long run.
It's interesting. You talk about the advantage, and it sounds like you come from a advantageous position, or the reason you're streaming is for the benefit of cost, as opposed to options. Would you say? Because I feel,
yeah, it is cost over options. And I'll be honest with you, looking at all of the streaming services from the US, I mean, it's mind-boggling. I mean, I did a little bit of research. Think about this for a second. There's over 200 streaming media services in the States. And how does one decide, pick and choose, what do I want? What can I afford? In Canada, we have less than 30. So it's a lot easier to really decide, all right, I want this from column A, I'll take this from column B, and then, my overall cost is far reduced than what I would pay for cable. But I think the limited choices makes it easier for us here to be able to make those decisions, right? Now, as more cord cutting becomes available in Canada, it's going to be a lot more interesting to see what choices are out there. But you're right. It really was a cost factor when you are laid off from a job. For example, this day in coronavirus lockdowns that we're all involved with, I mean, I'm pretty sure paying the cable bill is far at the bottom of the list of paying bills than feeding your family. So now here's where cord cutting lifestyle gets very interesting and very competitive, I think. And but there are a lot. I'll say there are a lot of good free stuff out there that if you have to rely on cutting something out of your entertainment budget, do consider the free stuff. You got a Roku, Chuck? You're familiar with Roku? That's where we met, on the Roku page.
I'm a Roku. Roku. I'm cuckoo for Roku.
But
I just came up with that. I think that I've got a new thing I'll have to pitch to Roku.
Good. Well, Roku is a great starter device for everybody. You don't have to be smart to figure out Roku. All you need is
Is that a veiled insult at me, George? I must have used Roku because
I never do that. But Roku is a great place to start. Get yourself a Roku account. It's free, and it'll even, once you do the setup, it'll even suggest some free apps that you can put on there. And I guarantee you, once you take a look at 2 or 3 of the great apps that are there, there's even some that have free live TV channel like stuff. It's very easy to get into, and you don't have to sacrifice much except for a big cable bill. And while you're locked down, not just you, Chuck, but everybody out there, take a look at that stuff. You might find that it's a lot easier to kind of get your mind around changing your streaming habits, your TV viewing habits, and it's a lot easier than you think, I think.
Well, I got to tell you, I love, the blog is The Frugal Streamer at blogspot.com, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
And I think it's fantastic, and we're going to do these, as often as we can, so that we can, drop a tip here or there so people can learn. And this is how committed I am to learning. This was my COVID-19 sacrifice, is that I cut my hair. I wanted to be just like you. I shaved my head.
I love it. I love it.
Unable to get. Are you naturally that? Is that your style, or this is brand new for me?
No, that's my style. It's when I started losing it here, I said, well, I think I'm just gonna lose it everywhere, and it's just no more bedhead. Best thing in the planet.
I've never had it like this, and I would wake up in my midnight trip to the bathroom, and I would catch myself in the mirror, and I think we have a home intruder. So, it would worry me, but I do. If you ever can't do this, I'll just disguise myself as you. And,
perfect. Hey, works for me. Yeah, works exactly. For me. And trust me, in the hot summer months, you're gonna thank me for this style.
I'll call it the hair cutting, cord cutting George. So awesome. Thanks, George. And we'll see you next time.
All right. Happy streaming.
You too.